Japan is known to have strict social rules and expectations of its citizens. These rules unfortunately have some negative effects on some in their society. In a society where people's individual values are kind of based on how they conform to social rules, issues tend to occur. One such issue is called Hikikomori, which is Japanese for pulling inward or being confined. It's also known as acute social withdrawal, which is a total withdrawal from society and seeking extreme degrees of social isolation and confinement. Hikikomori refers to both the phenomenon in general and the reclusives themselves. Hikikomori has been described as loners or modern day hermits. Estimates suggest that about 500,000 Japanese youths have become social recluses, as well as more than 500,000 middle-aged individuals. Most are men, generally speaking, between the ages of 18 to 35, but there has been a recent increase in women being struck with this particular issue. There isn't really any real treatment for the issue, because it's considered shameful to have a family member with Hikikomori. Many keep it a secret, so the true figure could be a lot higher. It can stem from bullying, family pressures, and not being able to hold down a job. The psychiatrist Tamaki Saito defines Hikikomori as a state that has become a problem by the late 20s that involves cooping oneself up in one's home, not participating in society for 6 months or longer, but that does not seem to have another psychological problem as its principal source. Most Hikikomoris tend to suffer from the following characteristics. They spend most of the day or nearly every day confined in their home. They have a persistence of avoidance of social situations and relationships. They have social withdrawal symptoms which can cause significant mental health issues for a duration of at least 6 months or more, and they have no apparent physical or mental disorder to account for these social withdrawal symptoms. They don't tend to have many friends and often have to rely on their parents to feed and take care of them, and as a result they spend most of their time in their bedroom. Because of this, they tend to become more insecure and shy, and they tend to talk less, which again would increase their poor mental health. With the help of technology as it is today, most can order everything they need from the comfort of their home, so there isn't really any need for them to leave. So modern day has made it nearly too easy for the Hikikomori to exist and for the Hikikomori not to get better. Hikikomori like this became one as a result of bullying while in university, and has spent the last 10 years being secluded in the bedroom while his mother takes care of him.
I need the sound of the TV, otherwise I don't feel well. The silence reminds me that I'm alone. I often stay in my futon the whole day and just stare at the ceiling.
I also would feel very much sad for his mother, who is hurt by her son. She very much feels sorry for him and wants to help him get better, but doesn't know what to do, and she's frustrated to have someone, especially an adult, living in her house who doesn't seem interested in trying to improve his situation and trying to be better. And it must be hard for her to see her son like this, and I would have a lot of sympathy towards her, even if she's not as sympathetic towards her son as perhaps some people might think she should be. I do feel that it must be incredibly difficult to see her son suffer like this. Now, there isn't a lot of data on the Hikikomori. It's not something that's written in a lot of papers. It's still a relatively new phenomenon in Japan and other parts of the world, but there is some theories as to what is causing it. So one theory is that the Hikikomori is a similar social withdrawal exhibited by some with autism spectrum disorders, which is a group of development disorders. So this has led some psychiatrists to suggest that perhaps the Hikikomori may be affected by the autism spectrum disorders and other disorders that affect social integration, but their disorders are more altered from the typical Western European American presentation of these disorders because of Japanese socio-cultural pressures that exist. According to author Michael Zesinger's book, Shutting Out the Sun, How Japan Created Its Own Lost Generation, the syndrome is more likely related to post-traumatic stress disorder. The author claims that the Hikikomori interviewed for the book had discovered independent thinking and a sense of self-worth that the current Japanese environment could not accommodate. So some would suggest that the Hikikomori actually have some benefit to spending time alone and being reclusive. It makes them more individualistic, it makes them more self-reflective, which is not something that is very popularized in Japan as a society. Now, when it comes to Hikikomori, it's also important to note that they don't tend to have a specific social background or age range, like most tend to be men, but the number of women is growing, and economic wealth does not affect it either. Generally speaking, it's created by Japanese socio-cultural pressures, where people are expected to work very hard to be very successful, and they put a lot of their value and self-worth on the success. And a lot of young people, as well as older people, can't deal with that pressure, so they become like hermits as a result. And that's a common theory that seems to be affecting people in Japan, and that's why there's so many people in Japan that are currently suffering with this particular issue. Now, there is some systems in place to help treat the Hikikomori. One system in place is a system by a company by the name of New Start, which is based out in Japan. They use a system called rental sisters. Now, rental sisters are women that are paid 100,000 yen a month, which is for our weekly long sessions, which accounts to 900 American US dollars. They try to get them out of isolation. Now, they're not people that are trained professionally, medically, psychologically. They just try to connect with the Hikikomori as best they can, and they bring them out for activities like going for food or buying groceries to help get them out of the house. According to a rental sister, it can take anywhere between 6 months to 2 years to kind of build the trust and make some progress with them. But it has proven to be more effective at treating the issue. Parents don't really have many other options when it comes to the younger kids having this particular issue. So at least this way it has some effects when you come into the house and forcing the Hikikomori to mix and have social interactions, and the more they have, the more improvement can be made. Now, another thing that this New Start company does are called New Start dormitories, which are kind of like halfway houses for people recovering from Hikikomori, where they pay a rent and must do part-time work and also volunteer for charity. They also have to hand their phones in, and if they want to watch TV, they have to do it in these communal rooms. Now, over the last 18 to 20 years, they've had about 2,000 to 3,000 people stay, with 80% of that being able to integrate back into society. Now, of course, that's a very low number compared to the overall number of people that are suffering from this, but progress is being made at least. Now, according to Japanese government figures released in 2010, there was about 700,000 individuals living as Hikikomori within Japan, with the average age being 31. Still, the numbers kind of vary amongst different experts. Some think the numbers at this point is 1 million to 1.5 million. One particular type of Hikikomori are the ones that spent their time in their 40s in isolation. They are known as the first generation Hikikomori. The issue is, which has become known as the 2030 problem, is when these Hikikomoris turn into their 60s and their parents are no longer to be able to provide for them, they might not be able to actually socially integrate back into society. So another issue is that every year it's estimated that about 30,000 people die alone in Japan. Sometimes they don't really get found until months after their deaths due to their isolation from others. The generation of people doing this are getting older, making these kinds of deaths more recurring and reoccurring, especially when they can't depend on others or their parents once their parents have passed on. Once isolated, it removes the pressures of everyday life and also the pressure of interacting with others. And as a result, people become afraid of being in the outside world, and they only feel safe in this isolation. And this is the kind of trap that a lot of Hikikomoris get into. But there is some positives to being a Hikikomori based off some people who have experienced it. And like I said earlier in the video, a lot of the things that are beneficial is the fact that you can self-reflect, you can feel more like an individual, you can really think about things more clearly in ways that you can't do living in social life that is constantly moving, constantly going. It slows everything down, and that kind of helps you have a more reflective type of personality. This helps you grow and change. Now, of course, it can be more toxic long term if you can't get out of it, which is what the issue is for the Hikikomori. The Japanese government is trying to get a clear idea of the issue at hand, but unfortunately there's many thousands of Japanese people who suffer with Hikikomori, who remain isolated, and unfortunately many who will die alone because they cannot escape the mental trap that they have set for themselves. For me personally, I feel for them. I think a lot of us during the pandemic can understand that feeling of being trapped in your house, and although, like I said, there were some benefits of that, I can also understand the feeling of being in your room and not socially interacting with people. I know during my pandemic experience I spent a lot of time on my own for months and months, so I can understand the negative psychological effects that it has on the Hikikomori, and I can only imagine with years and years and years of living like this how miserable it can make you. And it's only natural that you be more depressed. It's only natural that you become more fearful of what's outside your door. And it's a shame, especially in Japan, because part of that social pressure that's created in Japan, where it's all about honor and working hard and working yourself to the bone and being successful, and those pressures can be very, very high. And as someone like myself that lives in the Western world, those pressures are there, of course, but not at the same intensity as you would experience in Japan. And because a lot of these families don't want to talk about the Hikikomori issues that are going on, that's why the figures are so skewed. So I would have a lot of sympathy for these people. I feel like I can connect to them on some emotional level, because I feel like I've suffered in a smaller scale because of the pandemic. And I really hope that Japan and the Japanese government kind of comes up with a way to really improve the issues that are going on, and hopefully come up with some sort of long-term treatments to kind of reduce these numbers, so less people can spend their lives in isolation and spend less time alone. Now, of course, there's plenty of people that have come out from the other side and are better because of it, and hopefully that's something that can continue to be a trend in Japan, and hopefully the Japanese government can find safe, quick solutions to these issues, and hopefully these people don't get forgotten. Hey guys, just want to say thanks again for watching and subscribing and liking the videos. It really does mean a lot. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did enjoy it, please consider sending a like and a share, and hey, why not subscribe while you're at it? As always, there's more and more content down the pipeline, so I really hope that you guys are enjoying the videos, and I hope you learn something from them, because that's the main thing I'm getting from these videos, is try to teach people about things they haven't heard about before. And Hikikomori is an interesting topic that I hadn't heard before, and I thought it was something that was worth sharing. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video as always. Peace.